Are you wondering if you could turn your pink hydrangea blue, or whether your climbing hydrangea will damage the brick on your house? Hydrangeas are a very loved plant, and they're also a very hated one. I have friends who say they wouldn't dream of having a hydrangea in their garden, but I've noticed recently people saying, do you know, I've just bought a hydrangea, is there something terribly wrong with me? So I think hydrangeas are having a bit of what you might call a moment. And why not? Because after all, they have incredible, beautiful, showy flowers. They love shade. They're a brilliant plant for shade. And they start flowering in the summer. They go on through to the autumn, often changing into all sorts of gorgeous colours. And then in the winter, some hydrangeas have the most beautiful dried flowers, which just look gorgeous in the frost. So they have really got an awful lot to add to your garden, possibly for about 6 months a year. And there are very few plants that you can really say that of. So to tempt you into perhaps thinking a bit more about hydrangeas for your garden and to answer some of the questions people ask, I've been talking to Naomi Slade, who's got a book out called Hydrangeas with gorgeous photographs by Georgiana Lane. And I put the links to that in the description below. And Naomi is a botanist as well as being a journalist and an author. So she knows a lot about hydrangeas. And so I've asked her some of these tricky questions. It's Alexandra here from the Middle Size Garden YouTube channel and blog. Naomi Slade's book Hydrangeas with gorgeous photographs by Georgiana Lane is available from Amazon worldwide or directly in the UK from naomislade.com, and it shows, for instance, the history and cultivation of hydrangeas, which really does read like some sort of a thriller. Hydrangeas first came over, they were discovered in the Americas in 1736, and then other hydrangeas were discovered in China and the rest of Asia by botanists who had to go through amazing adventures to bring them back to Europe. One hydrangea was discovered in 19th century Japan, which was a very difficult place to take things out of, but the book accounts of how he managed to get a pet goat in order to justify his botany plant hunting. Practically every question you ever ask about a hydrangea, the answer will be dependent on what sort of a hydrangea you have. And this doesn't mean that you have to kind of grapple with difficult botanic Latin names and things like that, because it's quite easy usually to tell from the flower and from the leaf what kind of hydrangea you have. The most common one, the one you're most likely to find in your garden or your garden centre, is Hydrangea macrophylla, and that divides into two kinds. There's the mop heads and then there's the Lacecaps, which are, as you can see, gorgeous. And Hydrangea macrophylla is the only one that will change from pink to blue. And even that depends on your soil, but we'll answer that question later. The other types of hydrangea that you're most likely to see in your garden or garden centres are Hydrangeas arborescens or paniculata. Now these two originally came from North America, and while most other hydrangeas came from China and the rest of Asia, but botanists think that there are still quite a lot of hydrangeas to be discovered in South America, and this of course would mean that hydrangeas date back to the time when Asia and the Americas were connected as a landmass, so they are a really old plant. Arborescens and paniculata will not change from pink to blue. They just simply don't have it in their makeup. Sometimes you'll buy white flowers with hydrangeas, and often it's an arborescens or paniculata, and they will go from white to green and then they'll antique to a lovely brown. And I have had questions on my other hydrangeas video, which I will put in the description below, about the care and choosing of hydrangeas. And I have had questions, people saying, oh, I bought a white hydrangea and it's now turned brown. And that's really just because it's aged. But of course, actually, it's still a good flower head and it will look lovely if you have frosts. The easiest type of hydrangea to recognise, of course, is the oak leaf hydrangea. And this is the only one that does well in sun. And then, of course, there are the climbing hydrangeas, and the two that you will probably find is Hydrangea petiolaris, which you can see here in the book, and also Hydrangea ceratifolia. So, how do you turn your pink hydrangea blue? And there are lots of recipes for this you'll find on the internet, but Naomi Slade says she thinks you should be very cautious. If you're going to do something like put coffee grounds or Epsom salts or citric acid or lemon peel around your hydrangeas, it's going to need an awful lot to change the composition of your soil. And your soil also is very large and it's always moving. There will be worms, there will be microorganisms, there will be rain, there will be wind, there will be falling leaves. And all of that means that the soil is constantly evolving. So anything you would do, like adding coffee grounds, you'd have to keep on doing and keep on doing. And that actually could mean that you could damage either the hydrangea or other plants around it. Naomi says that coloured hydrangeas are pink in alkaline soil and blue in acid soil because the presence of lime locks up the aluminium ions that are required for making the hydrangea blue. So it's not actually the pH of your soil that makes the difference, it's how the chemical composition of the soil reacts with the hydrangea. The only hydrangeas that turn from pink to blue are the Hydrangea macrophylla. And they will also have more of a tendency, if you buy a blue hydrangea, it's going to go blue much more easily. And if you're going to buy one that is known for being pink, it will be pink much more easily. So it's also worth, when you're buying a hydrangea, just if you want it blue, buy it blue. Keep it in a pot if your soil isn't right. It will probably go pinkish or lilacish if you put it in the soil and the soil isn't right. So if you want blue hydrangeas and your soil only hosts pink hydrangeas, grow them in a pot, because then you can use ericaceous compost and you can use specific blue hydrangea feeds and you will get a wonderful effect, but just don't try it in the soil. So which hydrangeas are best for bees and other wildlife? Hydrangea macrophylla. Its mop heads are not proper flowers, they're just sterile bracts, and they are no good for bees or wildlife. But Hydrangea macrophylla with the lacecaps have got little tiny florets in the middle, and bees and pollinating insects can use those. So when you see the little tiny florets on hydrangeas, those are good for wildlife and for bees, but the great big showy bracts are not. Naomi also says that climbing hydrangeas provide shelter for insects and for birds as they go up a wall, and so those are also good for wildlife. So will a climbing hydrangea damage the bricks of my house? Naomi says, and there seems to be very wide agreement on this, is that a climbing hydrangea won't damage your wall. But if you've already got some loose mortar, it might loosen it further. And that's because hydrangeas climb with little aerial suckers. And that means you have to climb a climbing hydrangea up a wall or a fence, or even a trellis that's got quite a lot of wood in it, not too narrow struts. Because if you try and put a climbing hydrangea up a wire, it won't be able to cling to it and it actually may damage it. But certainly before planting a climbing plant on your wall, you need to make sure the wall's in good condition. And I've got a video about choosing climbing plants, and that'll be in the description below, which has the 5 questions you need to ask yourself before actually buying a climbing plant. So that might be useful. So which hydrangeas are best for shade? Naomi says that Hydrangea macrophylla is the best one for shade, and paniculata and arborescens do well too. Naomi likes to choose the pale colours and the white because they really glow in the shade. And as for which hydrangea is best in sun, it's the oak leaf hydrangea, the Hydrangea quercifolia, which is one of the easiest ones to spot because its leaves are like oak leaves. Which plants work best with hydrangeas? Hydrangeas work very well in clumps, like in hedges or in groups around on their own, but if you're going to partner them with other plants, then choose a plant with an opposite season of interest. And the season of interest for hydrangeas is probably from about midsummer through to the winter, so you would want to partner them with a spring plant like azaleas. Naomi is a big fan of underplanting hydrangeas with small bulbs, hellebores and evergreen ferns to extend the interest into winter. She also thinks they work well in a woodland setting, and in terms of a garden, that would be anywhere where you've got a lot of trees. I have some trees down my north-facing wall, so it's shady and it's got trees, and this is where my Hydrangea arborescens Annabelle is very happy and very trouble-free, and in fact I've just seen a bee go whizzing in there and settling on it. Not liking hydrangeas is a peculiarly British problem, because if you put #hydrangeas into Instagram, you'll see some most beautiful blue hydrangea hedges in New England with the sea behind them, absolutely lovely. And then you'll see lots and lots of lovely Japanese delicate flower arrangements with hydrangeas, because in Japan hydrangeas are revered almost as much as cherries. And in northern France you can see hydrangeas just looking gorgeous almost in every front garden, and you know the French are very good at making things look chic. So, is it time to stop hating hydrangeas? Let me know in the comments below, and if you'd like more tips, ideas and inspiration for your garden, then do subscribe to the Middle Sized Garden YouTube channel, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.